people call me and they're like, hey, this happened. And then it turns out they're not pre-approved and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that was your fault. Sometimes get offended when people grill me about certain things because I'm like, I'm going to do my job, do yours. They forget to do those things that we do all the time. They're totally qualified. They have this profession and they're going to be fine. Sometimes if you forget the basics, you will end up wasting a bunch of time. And it actually gives you an idea of, this person is not ready to go look at houses. Most relationships fail because of unmet expectations. These are questions you should be asking before you go driving around the city looking at houses for a family, because you want to make sure you have the right expectations. Do you have a serious buyer on your hands, or are you setting yourself up for disappointment? Here's how you know. I work with agents a lot, and my business is built on helping agents build their business progressively. And I had a conversation this past week with 3 new real estate agents. They said, hey, how do I know when somebody is serious? Or they sent me a couple of buyers and I said, hey, those people are not quite ready yet. Could have been because of credit situations or something like that, or income situations. And they were not given the guidance on how to know if they have a serious buyer on their hands or not, or if they're just wasting their time. What we're going to go through right now is 5 questions, or what I call my high 5. These are actually questions that a real estate agent can ask so that they know whether they have a serious buyer on their hands or not. Now, these are not all inclusive. These are not the only questions you should ask, but there are general questions that you should probably know the answer to in a general conversation before you start driving this person around or, them looking for 3 or 4 months. And this is not just for new agents, because I had a very experienced agent call me and ask me some questions about an escrow that they were trying to open. They had a buyer come into town and they spent the entire weekend driving around. I think she said they went to 17 houses. And the guy had a very high income, but the way that he was paid and the situation with his previous home that he was moving from was such that they were not going to be able to close escrow. And she didn't know this up front because she didn't put them in touch with a lender. And somebody might say, well, you always put them in touch with a lender. Sometimes people get so used to doing things that they forget the basics and they forget to do those things that we do all the time. And they say, oh, I've seen this before. They're totally qualified. They have this profession and they're going to be fine. But sometimes if you forget the basics, you will end up wasting a bunch of time. Most relationships fail because of unmet expectations. And if you don't set the proper expectations up front and you don't have the proper expectations, you're going to end up being frustrated as a real estate agent. So here are 5 questions, and I'm going to go through each one of them. I'm also going to put a PDF download in the notes of this video so that you, as an agent, can download the PDF and you can have this available so that you can see exactly what questions you should ask, and it should be a ready reference for you whenever you have a new buyer. All right, question number 1, what do you think your monthly budget is? So this gives you a good idea of whether somebody has realistic expectations about what they plan to spend on a monthly payment, and it also gives you an idea of whether they can afford a house. Now, you can actually download a mortgage calculator from Mortgage News Daily. I like this app because it gives anybody general movement on where interest rates are going and what a quote unquote normal interest rate is. It gives you the average of the interest rates on a daily basis, and it also has a calculator there. So Mortgage News Daily is a quick calculator you can have on your phone where you can put some numbers in and see if what they're saying is even realistic. Let's say you have somebody looking to buy in Dallas, Texas, and they say, hey, I want my monthly payment to be about $1,500 per month. Well, the reality is, if you're buying in Dallas, Texas, unless you're 100% disabled or you don't pay property taxes, your property taxes alone on a $300,000 house is going to be probably $500-$600 per month. That's going to govern a lot of what the monthly payment is. No matter where you are, or you should be able to plug in what your tax rate is going to be and figure out whether that person's expectations are even realistic for them to be driving around looking at $300,000-$400,000 homes. This is something you need to know up front. So your first question you ask is, hey, what's your monthly budget? It's really non-intrusive. A question that you can ask pretty much up front. They might say, hey, I'm paying $2,500 a month for this rental that I'm in, I'm willing to go up to $3,200 a month if I actually own that place. That's the first question you can ask. The next question you should ask is, how much are you prepared to spend out of pocket, including your down payment and your closing costs? Now, this might be an opportunity for you to provide some education here, because the person might say, well, I don't want to spend anything out of pocket. I've heard about this loan or this loan or this program. And then you have some buyers that will say, well, I have $50,000 saved, but I'd like to keep it, if I could spend $25,000 of that and no more, then, I'm in a better position to move forward with this. So that's a question you can ask to kind of find out, how much money does this individual have in savings? And again, are their expectations realistic? Now, when you're referring that person to a lender, if you have a lender you refer them to, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of this video, that could be a data point that you share with them. Hey, this person's looking for a down payment assistance program, or this person has down payment saved, but they don't have closing costs. Those are things that you can share with your lending partner, which you should have a lending partner. You need to develop a lending partner so that he or she knows how to structure a deal that's going to best fit the situation before they go out looking, and we don't have a program that fits particularly what they're looking for. The third question you should ask is, hey, what do you think your credit score is? There are really, really easy ways to figure this out. Somebody could download an Experian app. I am not a Credit Karma guy, but if you download Credit Karma, it gives you some sort of idea, although it's not going to be accurate. Credit Karma tells you that your credit score is 550. You got problems. Now, if Credit Karma tells you that your credit score is 740, doesn't mean that your credit score is necessarily 740, but it does tell you that you're generally in a decent position to buy a home. Not that we can't do things with lower FICO scores. Yes, we can go down to a 500 in some situations on a FICO score, but I will tell you that only about 1 in every 20 of those loans actually close. It's not a, hey, you got 550, it doesn't really matter. It does matter. We got to look at some other things, but it does give you an idea to say, hey, this is something that we should be aware of and something we should know about. What's your general credit score right now? If they don't have their credit score available, have them download one of those apps. Some of the credit cards have credit monitoring or something like that. It gives you a general idea. Okay. Now, we're not using that to be the end all be all, like I said, but it does give you a general idea of what situation that individual is in. And it actually gives you an idea of, this person is not ready to go look at houses. If it's Thursday and you're having this conversation, they're not ready to go look at houses on Saturday without having an in-depth conversation with a lender. So therefore, you shouldn't be like packing up the car and spending all your time away from your family on a Saturday, honestly, with somebody with a 530 FICO score, if they haven't had an in-depth conversation with a lender and the lender has said, yes, they're still good, we can go. The fourth question that you should ask, how long have you been at your job and what do you do for a living? Now, employment is one of these things that is kind of funny or kind of interesting, especially when you start talking about loan guidelines. I'm not trying to turn anyone into a lender. I do not want to turn a realtor into a lender. I am pretty much a stay in your lane type of guy. I handle the lending. I let my realtor partners handle the real estate stuff. But this is a question that you can kind of get a fix on what's going on. If somebody says, well, I started a business about 5 months ago, and that's what I'm doing right now to make money. It's going pretty good. I'm making about $10,000 a month. In an ideal world, you would say $10,000 a month is a pretty decent income. However, the fact that they've had that business for 5 months or so, that's going to be a problem. Okay. Now, even if you can do some, strategic financing and figure out some situations there where they can qualify to get into a home, the problem is going to be they're going to have to talk to a lender first. And they need to know the basics of, what the situation is behind that business. What were they doing before that business? There are ways that particularly I can do that loan, but you're going to have to find out a lot of other things associated if you're going to go down that road. Generally, you need a 2-year work history. If they're W-2 income, doesn't necessarily have to be at the same job or at the same company, but generally you need a 2-year work history, whether that person is self-employed or whether that person is a W-2 worker. So all of these questions I'm giving you to ask are not that you have to know all the loan guidelines, but these are definitely questions you should know. If somebody has been at their job for 8 months or something like that, and there's not a history of them doing this job before, and they were not in school before, and they just totally change to a different industry, could be a challenge. Okay. Now, could they still qualify? Yes, but you need to have them talk to a lender first, and you need to be clear up front with your lending partner when you're passing this person over to them to say, hey, these are my challenges. I need for you to talk about this, this, and this. Okay. Question number 5, and it is the most important question when you're taking someone out to look at homes. Have you been fully pre-approved with a lender? Okay, fully pre-approved. Now, some of them might say, yeah, I have a pre-qual letter. I went online to my bank and I gave them this information and they spit out a pre-qual letter. Yeah, you're going to have challenges. Okay, now there's a chance that everything works out okay. But if I'm a realtor, there's no way I am taking that pre-qual letter without calling up that individual at the bank and having a very frank conversation about what have you seen? Have you seen all the income documents? Have you seen the tax returns? And I'm not telling you to grill loan officers, because particularly I sometimes get offended when people grill me about certain things, because I'm like, I'm going to do my job, do yours. But that's a bit of, arrogance or whatever. But there are questions that you have to ask if somebody brings you a pre-approval letter from Veterans United that they just punched in some numbers and Veterans United didn't even pull a certificate of eligibility. Now, I don't particularly call out lenders, but I don't like Veterans United. Their fees are high. It's ridiculous. All right. So have you been pre-approved, fully pre-approved, given all your income documents? Okay. I'll tell you, I have a deal going for a guy right now, and he's a doctor. When I look at the documents, he should have never been pre-approved. I mean, he has a very, very good income, but there are weird things going on between him transitioning between 2 places, and a large bank gave him a pre-approval letter because they're thinking he's a doctor, he's going to be fine. And now they're caught up in underwriting, and now I'm having to jump in and save a deal for someone who really never should have been pre-approved in the first place. Again, if they are pre-approved, before you put them in your car to drive them around the city and have them look at 15 houses over the course of 2 days, going from place to place to place, you need to go ahead and have a conversation with the lender. I don't understand people who don't have lending partners. I don't understand lenders who don't have realtor partners. I don't understand realtors who don't have lending partners. I guess anybody can build their business the way that they want, but I don't understand how you don't have partners that you can have frank conversations with and say, hey, are we good to go? How fast are we going to close when I put in this offer? Are we good for a 2-week close? Do we need longer on this close? Okay. Is this a cookie cutter deal, or am I looking at a FHA manual underwrite or a VA manual underwrite? These are the types of questions that you need to ask the lender. Okay. Because it governs how you structure your offers. If you're going out looking at a place and hey, this place is going to have, 4 offers or 14 offers because of the pricing. If you're going out looking at those places and you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be in a multiple offer situation, you really, really, really have to know what kind of deal we're dealing with here. Okay. If everybody's going to be putting in offers that close in 2 weeks and you got to submit an offer that you're going to need 35 days for because of some weird situation going on, you need to know that before you put the offer in. Okay. All right. So this is not all encompassing, like I said, but this does give you an idea of 5 questions that you should be asking to your prospect or lead, although I don't like to use that word lead. These are questions you should be asking before you go driving around the city looking at houses for a family, because you want to make sure you have the right expectations. Sometimes when people fall out of escrow, or when people end up wasting their Saturday, working with a buyer or something like that, I say, people call me and they're like, hey, this happened. And then it turns out they're not pre-approved and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that was your fault. You could have done that up front and not had this problem if you simply knew the right questions to ask. Okay. And then sometimes people will tell me like, well, they didn't tell me that. I'm like, well, did you even ask that question? So they're not going to volunteer information if you don't ask the right questions. Okay. All of this to say, make sure somebody's pre-approved. If you need some help or you want to partner with someone that's going to make sure your buyer is fully pre-approved and they're good to go before you go, frankly, wasting your time, connect with us, connect with me and my team. We love to help you, love to partner with you. We are in 46 different states. Okay. The only states we don't do, New York, Rhode Island, and the Dakotas. If you need some help and you need to partner with a lender that will qualify your people and make sure they're all good to go, reach out to me and my team. We'd be more than happy to help. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna put this a downloaded PDF in the notes so that you can download this. It's called the Major Buyer High Five, 5 questions you need to ask to make sure a buyer is really pre-approved and really to go shopping to buy a house. So talk to you guys soon. Hopefully this helps all of you realtors out there. See you next time on Major Money Matters.